And I will call the August 23rd, 2021 school board meeting to order. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Anita, if you would do the roll call, please.
Emily Zach. Here. Jennifer Deek. Here. Gary Dunlap.
Here.
Cheryl Hancock.
Here.
I am here. Chris Lau.
Here.
Rebecca Reber. Here. And Brian Wopat.
Here.
Okay, with 7 of the 7 school board members present, I would declare a quorum. Approval of the agenda. I would note that the agenda has been posted, distributed, and sent to the local media. With this in mind, are there any changes? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as published.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all of those in favor of approving the agenda as published, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Moving on to public participation. I will call on any individual who wishes to address the board relative to any item at this time. We ask that when your name is called, you come forward, share your name and address, and a 5-minute time period be followed. I would also remind you that board comments cannot include any personal or personnel items or issues related to a specific individual, including board members. So, first I would call on Tobias Newman.
Oh.
Hi, Tobias. Come forward and state your name and address.
Hello, my name is Tobias Newman, N6843 McCurdy Road, Holmen. I was just going to talk about masks, and I would like it if you guys would keep them optional. I've had asthma for my whole life, and recently, or last basketball season, because of them requiring masks, I recently have had to, I haven't taken my inhaler in probably 4 years, and recently, because of the decision to have masks required, I've taken it probably once or twice a day recently because of the decision to keep masks required. So I just appreciate if you would keep masks optional for the school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Tobias. Okay, next is Titus Newman. Titus Newman. I should also mention, sorry, your time won't start, is Anita Jagosinski is the clerk, and she'll be timing, and so you'll probably at 30 seconds, we'll give you a warning if you are getting there, close to your 5 minutes.
Probably
And she
not.
also has a time noise that goes off, so.
All right. Titus Newman, N6843 McCurdy Road. I just first like to express my gratitude in you making masking for students in the high school optional, not mandatory. It's affected a lot of students just not being able to see like the emotion in everyone's face. It's just changes the atmosphere, all the students around, and same with the teachers. It's just not the same feeling and everything. And I just also like to point out that everyone who has wanted to take the vaccine has had the opportunity to do so, thus making anyone who felt like unsafe or anything against COVID, they should feel a lot better about that. Leaving everyone who doesn't feel the need to take the vaccine or like feel unsafe against COVID, they should not have to wear a mask.
Is that all?
That's all.
Thank you so much, Titus. Appreciate it. And Joshua Newman. Joshua.
Hi, Josh Newman, N6843 McCurdy Road, and the proud dad of those two boys.
And you should be.
They both said, hey, I'd like to also come speak. Can we come? I said, you bet, for sure. So Titus was going to mention how he thinks it's really silly that all the students, right, if they're to be masked up while they're in school, they hang out with kids from different districts. They're hanging out outside of school all the time. He said it seems like not even thought out that we would have to wear masks in class, and then after school, we're all hanging out and we're not wearing masks. So that was one thing he wanted to say. I'm sure the nerves got to him a little bit. But, we just did the pledge, and we said, with liberty and justice for all. Last time at the school board meeting, it was said that there were some references made to freedom, and that it can be real selfish when we state our beliefs in the name of freedom. We're a country that's founded on liberty and justice, right? I mean, like, justice is a big rallying cry. I'm not going off my notes at all, which is great. We need justice for people, but liberty is just as important. And so we cannot mock freedom and mock people that stand on the opposite side of our viewpoints on things. I was here in February talking about leadership and making smart decisions when that boy drove 2 hours with the windows open on his school bus because somebody made a bad decision and did not regain trust by apologizing. Instead, we said, hey, cold weather's coming. It was in February, right? So that's how we regain trust. You guys are in positions of leadership, and you can have positional leadership, which you have. You can also have influential leadership. By influence, lead by influence, right? And when you lead people by influence, it creates unity. It creates people charging together and fighting something together, which is much stronger than when people are divided and fighting against each other, right? So my concern going forward, because, again, 2 weeks ago, stating we're listening to outside sources. We're not real concerned with how many people are coming to the meetings, how many emails we're getting. Those things will be considered, but will not be our primary cause. In the school board policies and administration rules, section 112, the people in their school board, philosophical foundation, public schools belong to the people. This isn't on our website. The people through the board govern our schools. That's exactly what it says. Administrative rule provision, the board is mindful that people are the ultimate governors of our public education and the board. And point 6 under that section says the public should hold itself accountable for maintaining a vigorous interest in, concern for, and constructive criticism of our schools. As this thing rolls out, this is not going to go away. We all know that, right? And you guys are in the unenviable position of having to lead our community in making a lot of decisions, right? And a lot of people coming after you for whatever you're going to say. Remember this, please, because the CDC and the World Health Organization, there are all sorts of influences. It's like me as a realtor taking rules from the National Association of Realtors in Washington, D.C. about the Holmen community. They don't know our market. They don't know how we should have to work with other realtors, yet they give us guidelines that affect home sellers and buyers in negative ways, okay? You guys have the power to make the decisions for our community here, and I would expect, like our policies and procedures say on our own website for our great school board here, that the school board belongs to the people. So please remember that, and don't skirt issues by saying some other entity is telling us this or that. Thanks for your service. Appreciate it.
Lori Abeda. A little better, Lori?
Thank you so much for pronouncing my name correctly. I appreciate it. Good evening, President Hancock, board members, and Superintendent Mueller. It's good to see you again. Thank you for allowing us to speak and share our concerns with you again. So I heard it said that it's selfish of parents not to have their children to wear masks. My question is to those who make this statement. Do they see the rashes and the staph infections and complaints from their children from having headaches from wearing their masks 7 to 8 hours a day like the parents do from their kids? The other statement that I've heard, that kids need to be kept safe from getting COVID, and that is by wearing a mask. Well, here's some statistics. The total amount of deaths among children since the pandemic started from COVID is 335 children total under the age of 17 in the United States. There were more than 500 deaths among children who died from the common cold during the same period. Of the 335 deaths, no one asked if these deaths were precursor by comorbidities. I am not knocking or negating any deaths from any any source. But there are more children who die from accidents ranging from bikes, cars, falling from high places. And to put them in a pillowed-lined room their whole lives would be considered child abuse. The statistics that should matter during this COVID-19 pandemic is this. Depression and anxiety in youth doubled compared to the pre-pandemic levels. Emergency department visits for suicide attempts on ages 12 to 25 increased 31% compared to 2019, especially among girls, which is really a shame. 862 attempted suicides between the ages of 5 and 25 were in the last 6 months. That's 99% higher than the previous 6 months. Opioid, I think I'm pronouncing that right, overdoses are 29% higher in 2020 than before pandemic among children 17 and under. These are statistics that should be looked at rather than masking up our youth, not to mention the loss of learning how to speak and read facial expressions during a time that children are developing mentally, physically, verbally, and socially. I do hope that anyone who has children in this district will reconsider sending them to an environment that will stunt them in these areas. My mother-in-law said to me today, it is sad that these kids cannot have the freedom that we had when we were growing up, to mask them up so that they can't even read facial expressions from their fellow students and friends and their teachers. It's a shame that we put this on our kids. This is from my 84-year-old mother-in-law. I would be really happy to provide any references to any of these statistics to anyone, any of you guys who wish to have them. Just email me at alabeda5260@gmail.com. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, Lori. Connie Sweetner? Connie Sweetner? Yes, to speak, yes.
Hi, my name is Connie Sweetner. My address is, that's okay. My address is 611 2nd Avenue East here in Holmen. I don't have a speech. I kind of on the fly decided to come up here, so please bear with me. I'm probably going to be nervous and shaky voice, shaky hands.
Fine.
All I really wanted to share with the board tonight was that my husband and I have lived in Holmen for almost 16 years. We've been blessed to have a student of ours, our 20-year-old daughter, actually graduated from Holmen 2 years ago. And we have 3 little ones, almost 9, 7, and 4. Our 9-year-old is set to start 3rd grade this fall. Our 7-year-old is set to start 2nd grade. And then our baby is set to start 4K. I am the product of the public school system. Our oldest daughter started in Holmen from kindergarten all the way up to graduation. And our 3 younger ones at home, I always envisioned them being a part of Holmen as well. We love it here. We've called it home here for a long time. We have raised a child to adulthood here. And we are currently raising 3 younger kids here. But after, on Thursday, when Anthonyleckie released their mask mandate, my husband and I knew that it was imminent that Holmen was going to follow. And we made the very painful and emotionally charged decision to pull our 3 younger children from this district and enroll them in a private school. That decision broke my heart, and it broke my children's heart. And I just want you to know that we loved it here, and we never imagined that as parents we would be in this position, but we will continue to do this. We will continue to keep them out of the public school system as long as this is your policy. So I'm begging you, I'm asking you from a parent's perspective to please honor parents' choice. We want our children to go to school here. We want our children to continue to be members of this district, but we will not stand for not being able to make the decisions for them that we feel are best for them. That's all. Thank you.
Tony Zach.
I would like to thank the board first for allowing public participation in these meetings. I believe it's important to hear the thoughts and concerns of the children, parents, and taxpayers of this community. Second, I want to thank the board for saying the Pledge of Allegiance before the meeting. That is the kind of patriotism we need in this country, and I really appreciate that. Speaking of the importance of hearing the concerns and thoughts of our community, I would like to remind the board that they are here to represent us, the children, parents, and taxpayers. It was said in the last meeting that the board does not make decisions from emails, phone calls, or however many speakers show up. Those kind of comments show the true colors of this board and how it represents us. And I hope that there are people out there that are taking note that we need new board members in this board. Also mentioned in the closing remarks of the last meeting was how personal freedom is now somehow selfish and self-serving. How expressing your personal freedom and liberty is a sign that you don't care about others when you don't wear a mask, and how you can infect thousands, if not millions of people with this irresponsible behavior. All this said by board members not wearing masks 2 weeks ago. That's right. They were not wearing masks 2 weeks ago when they said those comments. Again, I come before this board and ask that you keep masks optional for our kids. Yes, masking is still optional for the older kids, but masking our younger children is not necessary. Keeping masks optional for kids does not mean that your child can't wear a mask. It just means it's an option. It is the option of the child and the parents to make that decision. If you can somehow show me a study that mask mandates are effective, please provide it. The fact is you can't provide the study because it doesn't exist. There are also no studies to show the Delta variant is more deadly to children. Kids do not have the same effects as adults. Again, a fact. When we opened this meeting today, we said the Pledge of Allegiance. There's a special word at the end of that pledge that stands out to me. That word is liberty, liberty for all. I think as Americans, we should take that very seriously. No matter what side of the political aisle you are on, we should be united around a liberty for all. That kind of liberty includes making calculated and informed decisions, doing a risk assessment based on what works best for you. I will not look down on somebody for getting vaccinated or not getting vaccinated. I will not look at you differently if you decide to wear a mask or not. That is your choice. You decide what is best for you. I expect this board to allow parents to make their own decisions when it comes to masking and vaccinating their children. Thank you again for listening to the concerns from us. As a member of this community, I thank you for your time on this board. I also encourage that you listen to these concerns and look at them from a different view than your own. Now, that's what I wrote out, and I usually like to stick to script. But 2 weeks ago, every single one of you sat up here without a mask on. You are now virtue signaling to all of us. And we stood out there, and there were people that were removed here because they wouldn't wear a mask because they were going to protest the mask. That's absurd. And to say that we sent out an email on Friday because this is a public participation and this is a public meeting, I believe that has to be expressed at least 7 days in advance, just like it would for the agenda to be published 7 days in advance. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm sure somebody out there on YouTube can take a look at it and see. So I would say that the rest of the parents in here that do not want to wear a mask should take them off. And I would like to see you get Officer Kind to remove them and then tell me why you're actually going to remove them when there is no law, there's no mask mandate involved right now. Are you going to remove every one of them, Cheryl, and everyone else here? You guys are out of line. And this board is going to see it in April when we vote for new members in, and then we're going to see it again. Thank you.
Trisha Chios.
Cheryl, there are people in the back row without their mask on.
Good evening. Trisha Chios.
Josh, would you please put your mask on? Would you please put your mask on?
And Tony.
And Tony?
I'm not putting my mask on, Cheryl.
Okay, then would you please leave? Officer Kind?
Point of view of kicking people out if they don't wear a mask in here. It's a public meeting. I have every right to be here.
Officer Kind, would you please? He's been asked to leave. Mr. Newman, you've been asked to put your mask on too appropriately. Please leave.
That's gonna take me too, dude. I'm done.
Mr. Okay. Mr. Newman, would you please put your mask on
Have
appropriately?
you escorted out also?
Yes, if you remove it.
Please have him do that.
Okay.
I'd say.
Gary, please don't engage.
You were them 2 weeks ago. You were them 2 weeks ago sitting here, 2 weeks ago without a mask. But it bothers you now.
I don't think she does.
Okay. Thank you, Trisha.
Cheryl.
Yes?
Somebody in the back corner with the hat on too. Oh, no, I think he's putting it on now, maybe. I don't know, it's just a different view from over here.
Okay. Thank you. Tricia, if you would start.
Trisha Chios, 924 Dana Lane, Holmen. My husband and I are new to the district.
See, there's a woman in the corner with white glasses on who's.
Is she a
Yeah.
student?
No, she's a parent, I believe.
If you, oh, she has her mask on now.
Okay, good.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You
First,
start
thank
her
you
time.
for giving me the opportunity to speak.
She said her name already. I'm sorry.
Do you want me to repeat? Trisha Chios, 924 Dana Lane. Yes. Okay. Thank you, first, all of you, for just giving me the opportunity to speak up here. I don't envy your position. I spoke with one of your principals earlier today, and I'm a former teacher myself, and now I teach at UWL. And we're kind of going through the same situation. I'm just going to put a little perspective. As a mother who roots my family and loses endless nights of sleep over making sure my kids are healthy and have good nutrition, and we pride ourselves in our body having this innate intelligence to better itself on its own without having any influence. But I do have a daughter with a nut allergy. She was diagnosed when she was 2 years old. She's a 6th grader now. I'm having a hard time putting together. Our schools still allow nuts. They're in our cafeterias, they're in our vending machines. We don't have a specific birthday list treat for when kids bring in treats. Mothers and fathers and other kiddos like to bring in homemade treats. I take the liberty of my choice to send to school optional snacks and treats for my daughter, just for safety and so she does not feel left out. Snacks in the classroom, a lot of students share, or teachers ask to bring in a lump sum so that we can distribute. There's no definite list to make sure that it's allergy safe, so my daughter does not have an anaphylactic shock reaction. That's okay. That's a choice. And so I will provide simple snacks for her that are safe for her body. Unfortunately, we did have an anaphylactic reaction when she was 6 years old, not in school, but it was the most terrifying thing I have ever experienced. Within 30 minutes of her ingesting what we thought was a clean, nut-free item, she swelled up, stopped breathing, and we had to administer epinephrine at the ER. One shot did not help her. She started to throw up and have massive headaches immediately. They had to give it to her twice. Watching my daughter go through that was terrifying. Now, if in 30 minutes she can die from just one minuscule ingredient in her body, why do we not take these allergies out of our school system? It is a direct cause of death. If they were to get infected with COVID, there is over a 95% recovery rate for anybody, not just children, anybody, to recover from COVID. My mother-in-law had COVID, came down with GBS, had to spend 3 months in a nursing home rehabilitating herself, and finally she's home, but her life and quality of life is not the same. My father-in-law had COVID, was put almost on, he did not go on a ventilator, but he was on oxygen support. I know what it feels like to have loved ones suffer and almost near death with COVID. But it's so small compared to the large population. And just to have a choice. It's my choice to continue to send my daughter to school with nuts being there, that she has to go to a separate table to go eat by herself in hopes that one of her friends will come and join her that didn't bring something to school. But that's a choice. That's the whole thing. It's a choice. I don't want to send my kids and have their smiles covered up. And I know it could be a short time, but it's going almost on 2 years. It's not a short time anymore. They're devastated. I don't want to do virtual school. I don't want to do homeschool. I want them to be in athletics. I want them to be in everything that you offer for our children because it's amazing. That's how they grow as individuals and become human beings, civilized human beings in our society. That's the wonderful thing about public education. But it's all gotten that far by choice. And if we start dictating what I know is best for my child, that's where I have a problem. I don't want to take them out of the school system. I really, really don't. Being a former teacher myself, it breaks my heart. But like I told my daughters, if you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for everything. And I want them to look at me as a mother who stood up for them and gave them a voice when they didn't have one. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Dr. Daniel Duquette.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Dr. R. Daniel Duquette, N6948 Sunrise Lane in Holmen. As a scientist and a public health professional, and one who prepares, I work at UW La Crosse, I oversee the public health preparation program. The public health data is incredibly clear, okay? For those who are not vaccinated, masking and social distancing are the most effective ways to address the COVID pandemic that we are currently experiencing. The more individuals that develop the disease, the greater the impact on the medical system. And as a result of that, individuals who experience heart attacks, strokes, other types of medical problems may run into issues. Again, the data is very, very, very clear from both a scientific perspective and a public health perspective. The two most effective things, in particular for those under the age of 12 who cannot be vaccinated, social distancing and masking. So with that, thank you.
Thank you. And Chad Updike.
Chad Updike, W5531 Olson Road, Holmen. Thank you for the opportunity to speak again tonight. By now, obviously you all know who I am, but I want to reintroduce myself to give you a better understanding of where I'm coming from. My wife works at Prairie View as an EA. We have 2 kids who attend Prairie View. Mac is 9 and going into 4th grade, and Ellie's 7 going into 2nd grade. I'm also a chiropractor here in Holmen and volunteer my time on the board of the Holmen Area Foundation. I say this to ensure you that I have skin in the game when it comes to this issue. There's a member of this board who takes it as a threat that I would rally people to show up tonight and speak for supporting our freedoms, which do matter, by the way, and rights not to force our kids to wear a mask. It was brought to my attention that this board member has said slanderous things about myself and my business over the last 2 days. This is what happens when people push back against the mainstream agenda and stand up for their kids. In every interaction I've had with this board over the last 2 years, whether that was in email or in person, I've always been respectful. The same cannot be said for this person to me personally or in the comments at the end of every meeting. There are only 3 main things I want to hit on tonight. One is the latest study regarding masks and children in schools. Over the course of the last 18 months, I've shared over 20 peer-reviewed studies and journal articles demonstrating the dangers and the ineffectiveness of masks. journals from gold standard publications like JAMA, PubMed, the British Medical Journal, The Lancet, and CDC. All of the experts the school board sat up here last week and preached that we should be listening to. Mostly to CDC because they were the ones advising wearing masks. In the last 48 hours, a study has been uncovered that was done by the same group you were all clamoring to follow 2 weeks ago, the CDC. The study's been buried for the last 3 months. Why? Because the findings and conclusion they came to is that student masking in a school setting has no statistically significant benefit. This is the only study that's done regarding this exact issue, masking kids in a school setting. I'll send that to each of you via email. In my opinion, the bigger issue that's been created is what you're doing in this community. None of these people want to be here tonight. I can guarantee you, none of us look forward to coming here to have to stand up for our kids week after week after week.
Chad, there's no need to raise your voice.
I take care of teachers, nurses, principals, doctors, vaccine-injured children, children with learning disabilities, and mothers who worry about these kids. One thing that they all have in common is that they're all good people and they all care about this community. They come from all walks of life and have all kinds of political affiliations, but they all have the same heart once you sit down and actually talk to them. What's going on with this board and how you respond to community members at the end of each meeting is doing more harm than good. You can use all the feel-good words and catchphrases you like better together. What you're doing is not bringing this community together. Not only are you creating a huge divide in the community, you're actually creating 2 classes of students in schools with this most recent mandate. I know you don't like to use that word, but what you're doing is putting a mandate in place. For those children who have not gotten a vaccination, you're mandating that they wear a mask by the age designations you're using. If you don't think that will lead to putting pressure on people to get an unproven medical treatment, you're crazy. Lastly, I would like to ask one question. What metric will you be using to determine when you'll be willing to take masks off of kids? Because as far as I can see, there's no objective metric that you're using to put these mandates in place in the first place. Numbers trending up, that's obviously going to happen when you start testing and contact tracing again. La Crosse County hasn't been doing that for months, and now they're doing it again. Obviously, numbers are going to go up. As you can tell, this community is fed up. I've not let my voice raise once in the times that I've addressed you, Cheryl.
Until today.
Until tonight, you're right. This community is fed up. We're fed up with the back and forth. We're fed up with being told what medical decisions that we have to make for our kids. And we're fed up with the lack of respect that comes out of this board. I don't know exactly what can be done to heal the divide, but I know we could start by, at the very least, being respectful at the end of every meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. Anthonyleckie? I know I butchered your last name.
Right. I want to start by letting Officer Kine know it's pathetic that he has to be here to escort people out of this building. It's absurd, actually. My name's Anthonyleckie, 602 Deerwood Street, Holmen. We have 4 kids in the Holmen School District, 1 in high school, 1 in middle school, and 2 in the elementary school. I recognize the school board has a difficult job, and that isn't lost on me. I'd like to help them make their decisions easier with my comments. I work every day in the surrounding community by, with, and for people of all walks of life. I would like to share some of my observations with the board and with the administration. The community is what this board and administration should be a reflection of, as they have brought you to the table you sit at to represent them. When I walk through the grocery store in this community, on average, I see 0 to 2 people wearing masks. The community speaks. When I go to department stores, hardware stores, etc., I again see 0 to 2 people wearing masks. The community speaks. At school registration, at all 3 of the schools, at all 3 levels, we saw a total of 1 parent and 1 child in masks. The parents of this community spoke. This weekend, we attended Cornfest. In 2 days, this fly is killing me.
Sorry.
In 2 days, that we attended Cornfest, I saw 4 people wearing masks. The community speaks. 2 weekends ago, we attended a concert and art event in the surrounding area with reports of 35,000 people in attendance. I counted approximately 15 people in masks indoors and out. The community speaks. I urge this board to listen to the taxpaying and voting members of this community and make masks optional. Please be brave and set an example of doing what your community is doing and asking you to do by simply and by not following other districts. Furthermore, for those that say masks save children's lives, I did some research on COVID numbers as of today. Keep in mind, the number of cases does not matter. It is the death rate and hospitalizations that matter. In the entire state of Wisconsin, children under the age of 20 have a 0.0% chance of dying of COVID. No chance. To put that into perspective, young people in this city have a better chance of being executed within walking distance of this building by a gang than they do of dying of COVID. La Crosse County 7-day death average is 0 and has been 0 since May 10th, when the average was 1. Prior to that, the numbers were on the 7-day average of deaths was 0 and 1 for multiple months. La Crosse County has had 1 death in the last 2 weeks, and the local health departments no longer keep track of or report the number of deaths because it is so low. If people knew what the death rate was, they would think differently. They do not want that to happen. Also, no one is dying in this area of COVID anymore, and very few are wearing masks. The numbers are very clear. Our children had COVID approximately a month ago, and the science shows that they have natural immunity that is greater than and lasts much longer than a vaccine would provide. Our 2 elementary children will not be wearing masks to school, period. I would never tell anyone else that they should not wear masks, and I would never ridicule, and I would never bully anyone or harass those that choose to wear masks. However, this is definitely not the case in reverse. Please make masks optional. One more thing. The last time I had an opportunity to come and speak at a school board meeting was multiple months ago. The board did not want to hear from the citizens and the parents, so they did a last-minute switch in an attempt to silence the citizens of this community. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the beginnings of fascism. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Jennifer Wesley.
Jennifer Wesley, N8730 Garfield Road. If you guys are going numb to the conversation of masks, I need you to wake back up because I'm not even going to talk about them. Okay, good evening. I'm here tonight to address the board and the administration with regards to a new teacher hire. I promise to follow your public participation rules and not use specific names. When class schedules came out, the name of the sophomore English teacher was recognized by some parents as a name that was recently in the news.
By stating class and that sort of thing, you are identifying the person.
So that information.
Thank you.
The teacher was recently put on leave from another area school district. I'm here tonight to ask the board and the administration if this teacher was the best candidate you could find. Furthermore, I'm here to find out what Holmen's standards are for recruiting. For those on the board or the administration or parents who are unaware of the reason behind this teacher being put on
Jennifer,
leave, I will share with you some comments and statements this teacher made to
Jennifer,
one of her classes.
Jennifer, you can't go into details
why can't I? This is public information.
Yes, but the policy specifically states you are to talk about personnel, district personnel items here. That doesn't matter. So,
okay. So there's a teacher that has been hired, and in my opinion, from what I have found out about the reason that this teacher was put on leave, is I'm questioning your standards of hiring. This teacher uses words like this in her classroom.
Again, you're talking about a specific individual. You cannot do that. I don't know how much clearer I can be. You cannot talk about personnel items. If you want to talk about something else, you can do that. There is a policy that you can address personnel items for. And I
Okay.
also know that you have been responded to the questions that you're raising tonight, but there is a policy regarding suggestions, concerns, and complaints, policy number 870. So if you would like to address the issue that you're raising right now, you may do so reusing that policy, but you may not do it under public participation.
So can I ask, what are your standards for hiring and recruiting teachers? Do you only look at a teacher's transcripts and resume and cover letter and credentials, or do you consider a teacher's character first? There's a program at the high school called Character First. I think you should start considering a teacher's character before all else. The teacher that has been hired is, in my opinion, not a good candidate for what Holmen represents. Holmen's vision is to belong, to serve, and succeed. This teacher is not gonna help feel like we all belong together. Is she gonna serve our students? Succeed?
Please do not direct your comments to an individual.
I'm not directing.
You can talk about the way you were talking about the policies, procedures, all of those things, absolutely appropriate, but not about specific
I will
individuals.
ask you and the administration team and all the parents and students at the high school to please closely monitor your teachers and what they are talking about in their classroom. Is what they are talking about relevant to the curriculum of the class you are in? Is it out of line? Is it divisive? Is it political in nature? Record your teacher if it gets out of hand.
Next, Matt Baitinger. Baitinger, is that close? Thank you, Matt.
Hi, my name is Matt Baitinger, W6376 Maplewood Lane. I'll give you a little bit of a story behind me and why we're here. My wife is a Holmen graduate. We moved back to the community 6 years ago. We chose Holmen for obviously the legacy of where she came from, but also in particular the school district. That's what we were most excited about. Last year, just like the young lady said, we made some very difficult decisions halfway through the year, actually very early in the year, to send our 3 young children to a private school. We have 3 children. They're now 5. 2 are 5 and 2 are 8. That was the hardest decision we had to make. We did not want to do that. I will not talk about what decisions were made last year. We cannot change that path. But what I have heard countlessly from several parents recently is, I'm just happy to have my kids back in school, regardless of the masks. I don't accept that. I don't think that's good enough. I don't think that's deep enough. I have some rhetorical questions. Perhaps I'll submit these for answers. Has there been any consideration for the younger students, ages 4K through 6, really talking about their cognitive learning? Where do young children learn from? Sight, sound, verbal cues, watching people's mouths move. I look at my 5-year-olds and just consider, how are they going to learn with their teacher wearing a mask? I understand some of the exemptions that will be made, but I find it very difficult to understand how my 5-year-old children are going to learn with the teacher's mask on their face. I would further add that my 8-year-old, who's going into 3rd grade, has missed out on 18 months of school. 18 months of school in this school district, which is where we chose to go. And I would also ask the same question one of the gentlemen asked before. What are the metrics that we are going to be using to consider moving away from masks? If we're simply relying on the CDC and the WHO as edicts, those are not metrics. Those are language, those are messages, those are not metrics. So I would encourage us to think strongly about what decisions are we making from here and what metrics will we follow to move towards a mask optional situation. As you can tell, I would strongly encourage you guys all to consider making masks optional. With my acceptance of all, inclusivity, I do not think of less of vaccines or masks. I accept any person's decision. I don't think it's courageous to move away from the masks or move into a mask mandate. I do think it's courageous to allow parents and their children to make choices on their own. Thank you.
Amy Table. Amy Table.
If you can't tell underneath all of this.
You can
Hi.
remove it if you
No, it's okay.
Okay.
My name is Amy Table. I live at W7563 Castle Heights Drive. I am a healthcare worker. I'm a professor at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse in the doctorate of PT. My husband is a 6th grade teacher here in Holmen, and we have a 15-year-old son. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I am in pretty significant disagreements with a lot of these people. I thank you for your courageous and knowledgeable decisions that you have been making as a board and as an administration. As a healthcare worker, I do know that we are headed for difficult times. I was here last year and I was begging you to have school go online. I will say for my son, it was horrible. He actually punched a hole in our wall. Something I never would have come out of my laid-back son because he got so frustrated with online school. I don't want to see that happen again if we don't have to. And I strongly feel that the only way that that is going to be prevented is through masking. Now, masking, a lot of these people are saying are a freedom. And I do believe that we have choices that we can make. And everybody has rights. This is not a right. This is it is a responsibility to public health. Same as drunk driving. If drunk driving was a right, then why would all of us not just drink, go to the bars, and get behind a wheel and go kill somebody? We may not kill somebody if we're drinking and driving. Same with COVID, right? It's a chance that we take, but that's because it's a responsibility that we have to the public to keep the public safe. So the one thing I do want to point out is, and I know people are saying the CDC, whatever, but specifically according to the CDC website currently, under K-12 schools, they quote, students benefit from in-person learning. I think we can all in this room agree with that. But they also continue to go on and say, due to the circulating and highly contagious Delta variant, the CDC recommends universal indoor masking by all students, staff, teachers, and visitors, regardless of vaccination status. In addition, the CDC also recommends at least 3 feet of physical distance between students in classrooms. I'm not worried about my child dying. My child's vaccinated, but I will tell you that within our healthcare programs at the University of La Crosse, we have had a multitude of students who are vaccinated get the Delta variant. Some have been hospitalized. Some have long hauler syndrome. It doesn't matter if they die. I also have had one student whose father did die. Have any of you had anybody die from this disease?
Yes.
That's what I would ask.
Yes, I have.
Okay.
And I watched him die. Okay. Amy, if you would direct your...
Yes. I just feel very strongly that we are headed in a bad direction if we're not masking. I also did learn today that Bangor's football team had to shut down. So they were not masking, and now their whole football team, freshman through senior, are done for the next 2 weeks. They're all quarantining. So this is what's to come. We also have 22,000 new refugees that are in Fort McCoy. I talk with the local hospitals quite often. This is going to impact our hospitals and our local communities. Currently, right now, we are in the red. It is high, and that is local. That is Holmen. That is not countrywide. Specifically in Holmen, 60% of our children are unvaccinated, ages 12 to 15. 53%, 16 to 17-year-olds are unvaccinated. And 18 to 19-year-olds, 53% are unvaccinated. The statistics are grim, and we just need to have those masks so we can stay in person. That's my biggest thing. I don't care if people are vaccinated. I don't care. I don't want us to have to go online. That's the ultimate thing. And the CDC is requesting this, requiring this. I would ask you to think wisely. Really look at research as well. If people are going to, that's an interesting noise. If people are going to give you research, make sure you know how to read the research.
Thank you.
That's another key.
And then our final speaker for this evening is Jamie Powell. Did I say that right? Oh, well, tell me what it is.
It is PAW. The
PAW.
GH is silent.
Okay.
I'll just get right down to the point. As a healthcare worker for 21 years, I'm a mother of a fifth grader at Sand Lake Elementary School. Do you want me to give you an address? I forgot about that.
You can, otherwise we have it here.
It's N5866 Walden Court, Onalaska.
Thank you.
Getting back to me. I have worked for 21 years in the healthcare system. As a mother of a fifth grader and an active Holmen community member, I have lived here for 40 years out of my 44 years of life. I implore the School District of Holmen to implement a mandatory mask mandate effective immediately across all grades. As COVID-19 Delta variant rapidly spreads throughout the United States and the rest of the world, we need to be proactive here and not reactive. I'm not sure, if people are watching the news, but currently you can see the systematic breakdown of our healthcare system when patients, especially pediatrics, are being treated in parking garages in tents. That's where we are in the South. We're actually using tent hospitals. That is scary. La Crosse County, in case you probably didn't know this, we have 4 pediatric ICU beds. 4. Which child should go? So is it the child in the car accident? The child that got COVID? Who gets that ventilator today? Whose kid gets to go on an airplane to Madison if they accept him? Who gets to go to Rochester if Mayo will accept them? That's where we're at. I don't know who gets to pick which kid has the consequences of having that happen to them. So even amongst our high schoolers that are out having friends and going out and having a great time, I'm so glad that you're having a wonderful time. I'm hoping that there won't be consequences to those actions for you. So we're in a dangerous situation, and it doesn't seem like anyone here is saying anything, but I want my freedoms. Instead of saying, what can we do as a community to come together to protect all of the students? You have 50 to 60% of your student body not vaccinated because they're not eligible. As of 8/5/2021, the Centers for Disease Control issued guidance that states that students benefit from in-person instruction, as the other person spoke. Schools need to make it a priority to keep students in school with multi-layer mitigation status. I would prefer everybody to be vaccinated, but I know people have choices and they're going to do what they want to do. But keeping kids in school for services such as physical therapy, OT, speech therapy, mental health services, and instruction like PT, OT, speech therapy, nervous. The American Academy of Pediatrics is also advising that children stay in school in person and advise all children above the age of 2 be masked for their safety and the safety of significant portion of students that cannot be vaccinated. To quote the American Academy of Pediatrics, guidance should be supporting the overall health and well-being of children, their families, and communities. We all have a common goal, and that's getting to keep our kids in school in person. So this supports the overall health of our children and their educational needs. In order to do this safely, we all need to cooperate together, do what we need to do to keep them in school in person. And by doing that, it means mandatory masking district-wide, good hand washing, staying home when you're ill, isolating when exposures occur, vaccinating if eligible, Children look to the adults that they trust for guidance. If mom and dad are panicking, so are the kids. As a mask wearer, I wear a mask 10 hours a day. I wear an N95. If you think you're uncomfortable right now in this cloth mask or in my paper procedure mask, try wearing an N95 with a PAPR mask, a fluid-resistant gown, taped gloves to your arm, and another set over the top. Now tell me how uncomfortable you are now. That's my work day. I don't work a lot with COVID patients, but when I do, that's what I wear for my safety and the safety of the people around me. I mean, people are saying, oh, nobody's dying. Well, have you looked in Houston County, Winona County, Monroe County, Grant County, Crawford County, Vernon County? All of those places are serviced by hospitals in La Crosse. Think. Finally, I want to remind everybody what it was like on September 11th of 2001. Terrorists, we lost 2,977 Americans instantly, and the country mourned it. 20 years later, it's hard to swallow. And now we've lost over 600,000 Americans to COVID-19, and no one seems to blink an eye. Be more outraged at that. I've got my cited sources if anyone needs to see them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you. That does conclude public participation this evening. If any questions were raised, Dr. Mueller will work with the appropriate staff member to respond to the individual who raised specific questions. But otherwise, it is not only practice but policy that we do not respond to specific questions and concerns that were raised during public participation. So then moving on our agenda, the next item is District Administrator's Report. Dr. Mueller. And she may be reporting some on the COVID decision if you're interested in hearing how the decision was made or decisions were made.
All right. Well, good evening.
Good evening.
Tonight, I'll start with this last week, we welcomed back our new teachers and had really enjoyed inviting them back here to serve our students this school year. And we will be welcoming back our whole staff tomorrow morning. And with that, kind of leads into also welcoming back all of our students on September 1st. As you've heard from many of our speakers tonight, and as a goal of our school district is we continue to do everything we need to do to have in-person learning. We've been monitoring our local case counts and vaccination rates and actually looking at future case rate modeling. Over the past several weeks, the overall case rates both in the La Crosse County and within our School District of Holmen boundaries have steadily increased. According to the La Crosse County Health Department data, case numbers for children between the age of 5 and 9 are following the increasing trend. Cases in children between the age of 15 and 17, when we last reported, are much lower and have recently trended down. As a result of this, and looking at through conversations with doctors in the area and hearing about the future modeling and what this leading up to the start of our school year, we communicated this past Friday through email to our families that we're going to be putting certain mitigation measures in place, just as we shared in our back to school presentation, that we would continue to monitor and adjust as needed so we can keep our students in person learning. So students in grades pre-K to 6 will be required to wear a mask, and then masking is strongly recommended for our students in grades 7-12. There may be periods of mandatory masking in grades 7-12 regardless of vaccination status, which include but are not limited to identified outbreaks that impact the school setting. As you heard in public participation this evening, there has been some of those in our La Crosse County area already. As per previous mask guidance, masks are required on transportation, but are not required outdoors. I do want to remind people and mention that there are many other mitigation measures that we continue to include. one of the ones that we talk about a lot is staying home when showing symptoms of COVID, and with a strong recommendation of being tested. We are continuing to maintain social distancing to the greatest extent possible within our school settings. We will quarantine of unvaccinated household members, increase our cleaning like we have been doing in the past year. We have our air exchange system that is like recommended and has been multiple times a day, and also our filters that we have in place. And we continue our hand washing and respiratory hygiene within our buildings. We will be quarantining students and staff for those who test positive for COVID and those who are close contacts. What has changed in our updated guidance is quarantine will not be required if both individuals were masked and remain 3 feet apart. Quarantines will also not be required for those who were vaccinated and have not developed symptoms. So we are making these decisions based on recommendations of health professionals regarding the increased transmissibility of the Delta variant. We were even told not to call it COVID-19, that we should be talking about Delta now because it is different. And we just encourage and promote that people talk with their doctor about vaccination and consider vaccination after that if their student is eligible, and if you, in other words, are concerned about missing in-person school or activities. We will continue to update our school district website with information on the status of our mitigation, and have resources on there for our families. And just want to take time to also thank all the many people who are taking necessary steps in helping to keep our students' activities running and allowing them to get to school on September 1st. So we thank them for that. So that's the district administrator report for this evening.
So are there any questions? So I do have a question, and it is about WIAA. So as a member of WIAA, they really have the oversight of mitigations, recommended mitigations, those sorts of things by our athletes. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, WIAA gives recommendations for our athletic programs.
But when it gets to tournament time, they also are able to and have mandated certain mitigations in the past
Correct.
year.
Yep.
So those are some things that we are required to do if we want to participate in tournaments.
Yeah, and the WIA will adjust and give communication as tournament time comes up if there is a change or something that they require of our athletes being members of that when the time comes. Currently, they strongly recommend the masking and quarantine procedures.
Have they said what they're going to do at tournament time yet? I know last year, tournament time, they mandated masks. They mandated the longer quarantining during basketball. I know.
At this point in time, I would say I don't want to say anything for certain because, as we know, the conditions keep altering and changing, and so does the information that's shared with us from organizations such as the WIAA. So.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, then we will move on to reports and discussion. We have 3 items this evening. The first one, Jill will be sharing about seclusion, restraint, and bullying report, which is a mandated report for us to have every year, and it will be on the 9/13 consent agenda.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Jill.
All right, seclusion and restraint and bullying report. We were not in person through the whole year last year, so these are numbers based on the amount of time that we were in person. Just a reminder, seclusion and restraint were required to report to our school board every year by October 1st, so that's why we come around this time to let you know kind of where we are as a district in the amount of students. We also look at it by students with disability or without disability. And then next steps down at the bottom, which I'll talk about in a minute, we are looking at expanding some of our data to be more equitable and look at a couple more subgroups. Part of seclusion and restraint is when students have behaviors that they aren't able to regulate. There are times when we have to have a separate area or a separate room where they're able to de-escalate to keep them safe and to keep other students and staff safe. Restraint is where staff members are using proper techniques to calm or de-escalate a student when they are unable to regulate in a very physical way. Neither one are recommended and only used at the very last resort when students or staff are unsafe. So we really try as a district to focus on de-escalation strategies. We're trained by, we have a trainer in the district that helps us with the de-escalation strategies, and that's something that we will continue to provide. When I first glanced at these numbers this year, I know that we weren't in person all year, but they are considerably lower, which is good, which means we are focusing more on de-escalation strategies. We are focusing more on alternative ways to help students. We have mindfulness rooms, we have sensory options, breaks. Our staff worked extra hard, especially last year, because students, when they came back from being out, struggled a little bit more with regulating when they came in person. So our staff has worked really hard on all those strategies to help our students become regulated and have strategies. Then when we get down, first of all, does anyone have any questions about the restraint or the seclusion part? Okay. The bullying section, that has to meet the definition, so this isn't the amount of times someone had said that they were bullied. This is an actual investigation. So when you look at total number of incidents of bullying, that means that has been investigated and deemed a bullying incident. Again, we weren't in person all year, so these numbers are not as they probably would be if we were, but just wanted to make sure you have those available to you. And then next steps, we're going to continue to train on de-escalation strategies and techniques. In our back to school in service this week, we will be having sectionals on that, sectionals on mental health, and sectionals on coping strategies. We're also going to include race and ethnicity equity data for part of our reporting. So we all went through an equity training recently, and we really need to look at this from a global stand. And then we're going to annually train our staff on seclusion and restraint documentation. One of the big pieces that was newly implemented is we have to have a debriefing session after we use seclusion or restraint so that we talk about what happened. How could we maybe do some things differently in the future so we could avoid this? So that's been a good procedure. And then as part of our Student Achievement and Learning Committee, our board committee, we will be revising our anti-bullying policy to include hate speech. And so we'll be looking at that policy again this year along with our equity committee.
And that will actually be one of the first things we do.
Yes.
So,
yep.
Okay. Any questions? As I indicated, this will be on the agenda for consent on the 13th of September.
Thank you.
Then moving on to budget stuff. Proposed budget for 21-22.
You sound so excited, Cheryl.
We all are. We all are.
Numbers, yeah.
Our seats. Even Officer Klein back there looks kind of excited.
Good evening. I have trouble with the glasses and the mask and all this, so bear with me.
Do they steam up?
It's too much stuff. So this evening, we're going to take a look at the 2021-22 proposed budget. Yes, steamed up. Budget summary. The development of the 2021-22 budget forecast began with the leadership update of the underfunded needs last fall and the budget forecast variables that were presented to the school board in December. Initial variables have been adjusted in this budget to include base wage percentage increases, group health insurance premium decreases, among other things that have changed since last November.
The preliminary budget was presented to the board on June 14th, and that was based on forecast models and information available in the spring. Both revenues and expenditures have been continuously evaluated since then. In 2020-21, last fiscal year, the district spent nearly $1.6 million in pandemic-related expenditures. However, at the same time, based on recently near-audited numbers, the district underspent annually recurring budget allocations in the general fund by almost $850,000. This resulted in a higher than anticipated June 30th unaudited fund balance, 2021. This healthy fund balance does support the recommendation in this evening's proposed budget to include several of those un- and underfunded needs based on the prioritized list from last December. I will highlight those needs and other assumptions that were in the issue paper as I go through the presentation in the DPI summary format. The first 8 lines of the DPI budget format include the general fund, Fund 10, general fund balance. As you see on the screen, column 2 is the audited 2019-20 general fund balance by designation. The next column is the unaudited 2020-21, or the year that we just finished on June 30th. That is nearing completion and is close to being audited, but at this point in the year, we still have to call it unaudited. And then the proposed fund balance for the general fund for 21-22 with the estimated June 30th of 22 ending fund balance of $17.5 million. This estimate does represent about 34% of the general fund expenditures, all fund designations combined for general fund, and we'll take a look at that fund balance history chart throughout this presentation. Lines 10 through 58 in the general fund summary is the general fund revenue. Line 11 represents the taxes for the general fund. It is estimated that the taxes will decrease to $12.9 million in the levy that will be certified in November. The state revenue limit and equalization aid formulas determine the distribution between state aid and local levy for the general operating budget. Various factors influence increases and decreases in the local levy. This is an estimate. The school district's general aid is estimated to increase in 21-22. This is primarily influenced by the revenue limit per member, the 3-year average membership, and prior year expenditures. Capital improvement expenditures in the general fund and or increases in debt service expenditures can also impact that state aid through increased shared cost. So being that the taxes are an estimate, that will fluctuate based on the variables that are yet to come, and I will share those in a moment. An increase in general aid, similar enrollment projected from last year at 3-year average enrollment is similar to last year. No new voter-approved authorization to exceed the revenue limit, and the same revenue limit per member, according to the Wisconsin legislative decision, produces a reduction in the estimated levy that appears on line 11. On line 17 is the subtotal of local sources of revenue, estimated at $13,167,000 for 21-22. Next is the subtotal of revenue from other school districts within the state of Wisconsin. Line 19 demonstrates the payments for services to the School District of Holmen, and this increase includes an estimated increase in the open enrollment tuition payments over the prior year. This could also include tuition payments for tuition waiver, transportation fees from other Wisconsin districts, or payments for other services. For the 21-22 school year, the open enrollment transfer, in this case into School District of Holmen, and later we'll look at out of the School District of Holmen, is $8,161 for regular tuition and $13,013 for special education tuition. That is up $36 in both of those categories from prior year. The estimated revenue from other Wisconsin districts is almost $1.6 million. Next up is the state sources of revenue. With the exception of the federal stimulus funds related to the pandemic, the revenue variables represent flat funding compared to the 2021 level. This includes no change to current level per pupil categorical aid, no change to current level per pupil revenue limit, and no change from the current special education state reimbursement rate of approximately 28%. Line 33 is the general state aid. This is projected to increase from $30.5 million to $32.2 million. The three major outstanding variables that determine revenue include the October 1 equalized property valuation, the annual third Friday September enrollment count, which will occur on September 17th, and the October 15th state aid certification. The three-year average student full-time equivalent is estimated at 4,074. FTE includes summer school FTE at 40% and September FTE based on the third Friday count. The estimate used in the proposed budget is based on prior year until we have the new numbers from September. State aid will be recalculated for the October original budget. The per pupil categorical aid is on line 38, or included in line 38, and that is estimated at $3,022,908. The estimated total state sources of revenue on line 39 are $35.7 million. This summary represents the federal sources of revenue. Federal aid in the general fund is primarily through federal awards for Titles 1 through 4 programs. The 21-22 proposed budget includes $333,503 in federal Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, named in Wisconsin ESSER 2. This award is accompanied by obligations and plan requirements and has a performance period ending in 2023. What that means is we have 2 years to spend the ESSER $2. The federal awards are on a reimbursement basis, and the proposed budget for 21-22 represents the grant awards without prior year carryover. So when this is being put together, we don't know how much of prior year leftover funds, for example, for Title I, is going to be awarded back to the district, and so when I propose the proposed budget, it does not include carryover, and then by the October original budget, that is included.
I was going to say, so you'll know that by October.
Yeah.
The end of October.
They're starting to open up all of those grants at DPI, and so then we get notified of carryover, but when I'm preparing this, we don't know all those yet.
Okay.
Line 48 shows the grant awards for 21-22, and a total estimated at $660,000. The next summary is a subtotal of other revenues. It includes items such as E-rate funding, flexible spending account forfeitures, workers' compensation, insurance dividends, rebates, recycled scrap, retired equipment sales. It's kind of just the catch-all of other revenues. You can notice from the numbers on the screen in 1920, that was actually an increase from the 18-19 year, and then again in 2021. But a conservative estimate of $85,000 for those items I have identified have been planned for 21-22. There were other adjustments last year that will not occur again in 21-22. And 1 year we had 2 workman's comp dividends in 1 year based on when we got the check, and so that increased the amount in that year. But historically, we don't see those larger numbers that you see in the previous 2 years, so I don't want to overestimate the other revenues. Oops. So the total proposed general fund revenue budget for 21-22 is estimated at $51,211,000. Next, we'll take a look at the expenditure budget in the general fund. We'll start with the instructional expenditure budget, lines 60 through 65 in the summary. The increases in this budget include salary and associated payroll benefits for instructional staff, plus the federal ESSER II budget dollars for COVID response. So you just saw that there was $333,000 in revenue. The corresponding expenditures are built into the expenditure budget. Two important expenditure changes for 21-22 include the negotiated base wage increase of 2.5% and the group health insurance premium decrease of 4%. Also included in the instructional budget is an estimated 2 to 3 additional FTE teachers. Those were shared with you earlier this summer by Melissa Cates and have been built into the budget because of the need for additional teaching staff. The estimated subtotal for instruction for 21-22 is $22.9 million on line 66. I previously talked about the un- and underfunded needs that are being proposed within this budget. This summary is the subtotal of support sources. Some of those under the identified list of the un- and underfunded needs to be funded that were included in the issue paper include Holmen Middle School and Viking HVAC projects. Let me back up a second. Some of these are one-time funding. Others are ongoing. So the HVAC projects are one-time. There are some roofing repairs needed at the high school old 25-year-old building. And so there's one-time funding for Holmen High School original building roofing repairs. New cafeteria tables at the Viking, some casework and cubby work at Viking, as well as a few doors at Viking. TMT security cameras, so at our Transportation Maintenance and Training Center, they do not have security cameras, so that project has been added for one-time funding. And then a communications specialist position. This would be an ongoing cost. Melissa Cates is working on putting together a job description for this position that has been talked about in the past, and that proposal would be coming forward in the near future. It is currently included in the proposed budget. Also, as discussed previously, we have a need for internet backup service, so that has been added as an ongoing cost, so that we have an alternate source to switch over to for internet. And the above, those un- and underfunded needs total $531,000. Those were all in the prioritized list that was shared with you by Dr. Mueller last December. Line 76 shows the estimated total expenditures for support services of $18,132,000. Next is the subtotal for non-program transactions. Line 77 represents the interfund transfer to special education at $5.9 million. Line 78 represents the estimated tuition payments to other schools, other districts through public open enrollment and private school vouchers. During this unprecedented time, movement of students is even more unpredictable. So this is an estimate. As identified in the summary on line 78, instructional service payments increased from $3.87 million in 2019 to $4.68 million in 2021. Although that transfer rate does increase year on year, like I explained earlier, it went up $36 for both regular education and special education tuition for 21-22. I don't anticipate that we will continue on that large trend. We'll wait and see, but you can see that I've landed somewhere in the middle, bringing that instructional service payments back down to about $4.5 million for 21-22. The total estimated expenditures in the general fund for non-program transactions is estimated at almost $10.4 million. The total proposed general fund expenditure budget is $51,449,532. This represents an increase of $1.37 million over 2021. This is a summary of the total revenues general fund, total expenditures general fund, and the estimated ending fund balance. in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen at $17.5 million. You've seen this chart before in our annual reporting. This one goes through 2019-20. So we do not yet have all the comparative data until all the audits are done for 2021. But we ended a year ago at just over 33% of general fund as a percentage of general fund expenditures. This further supports our ability to fund some of those and underfunded needs in 21-22. Any questions on general fund before I move on to Fund 21?
Any questions? I don't see any, so.
So the Special Projects Fund 21 in the School District Holmen is our gift accounts. The district has over 100 sub-accounts within Fund 21 for both curricular and co-curricular groups in the district. This fund accounts for gifts, donations, and fundraised dollars and the associated expenditures. In 2020-21, last year, Fund 64, the High School Activities Fund, and Fund 72, Scholarship Trust, were consolidated into Fund 21. This was in compliance with GASB Statement 84 rule. So going forward, Fund 21 also contains those dollars that were previously accounted for in Fund 64 and Fund 72, which explains some of the increase last year in the fund balance because we brought over those dollars. Accounts in Fund 21 are allowed to carry over their balances as of June 30th. Revenue is unpredictable in these gift accounts because it depends on fundraising and donations. But for the 21-22 budget, revenue and expenditure budgets are based on the reconciled carryover amounts, and that's why you see the same number in there. So the total expenditure budget for the special project funds is $786,496. Next is the Special Education Fund 27 budget. The revenue is estimated to increase from $8.7 million in 2021 to $9.1 million in 21-22. The increase in revenue comes from an increase in the internal fund transfer from the general fund and an increase from federal sources. Notice the interfund transfer last year was less than 19-20. This is because we had a number of positions that remained vacant and so underspent that budget last year. But you can see 2 years prior, the interfund transfer was just over $6 million on line 94. So the total Fund 27 revenue budget for 2021-22 is $9,166,000. The Special Education Fund expenditure budget is estimated to increase from $8.7 million to $9.16 million. Line 146, the subtotal of instruction, and line 156, subtotal of support services, both show a decline in expenditures in 2020-21, as mentioned in the previous slide. The estimated expenditures include adjustments for salary and benefits, just as they do in the general fund. Contracted student placement and substitute costs estimated for 21-22 are identified on line 160, and they vary year to year. Since the Fund 27 Special Education Fund is not allowed to go into a deficit position, the interfund transfer is adjusted at fiscal year end in order to accommodate this requirement. So here you have the summary with zero beginning and ending fund balance because it's not allowed to go in a deficit position. Next up is Fund 39. This is our debt service fund. So for those that, new board members might not know that this occurred, but in 1920, we refunded or refinanced the debt on Prairie View. And so you can see in that first column of numbers that there was quite a bit of revenue and expenditure that flowed through the debt service fund in that year, and that's because of the refunding. Not because we actually brought in all that new revenue, but you have to record it coming in and going out. The 2021-22 proposed revenue in the debt service account is $4,254,000. The debt service budget assumes a combination of using fund balance and part of the 2021 levy to meet the principal and interest due on the bond repayment schedules, while still practicing debt defeasance according to maintain a more steady tax rate and provide flexibility for cash flow borrowing and other purposes. This may change prior to the levy certification in November, depending on the certified equalized valuation and the state aid certification. The estimated expenditures in the debt fund are $4,110,850. In the bottom right-hand corner is the remaining indebtedness. This is the total combined principal at the end of this fiscal year, June 30th, 2022, remaining on the Prairie View debt and the high school addition and remodel debt. Next is the capital projects fund. I have Fund 42 up there, but it's also Fund 46 right now, which is highlighted in I guess in yellow. Fund 42 is the capital projects fund. This is where all the revenue and expenses for the high school addition and remodel have been taking place for the last 2.5 years. The estimated expenditures for the budget is $484,000. That's the balance on the high school addition and remodel bond proceeds that were carried past July 1st of this year. This is going to be put toward remaining contracts, Fowler and Hammer and Market and Johnson, and then any remaining furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And our goal is to have that spent out by December 31st. By law, it has to be spent out by April 1 of 2022. Also in here, you'll see revenue on line, total revenues on line 177, and there's a $10,000 number in there, and that is an estimated transfer, again, to Fund 46. I just put that in as a placeholder at this time. I feel like after we consider everything from Nexus Solutions, who is doing our condition facility audit, we may want to revisit how much we transfer to Fund 46 based on what we find out. But for right now, there's just a placeholder of another $10,000. We cannot spend that money, just as a reminder, for 5 years, and the first deposit was put into that Fund 46 account in June of 2021.
So this will be the second year that we've
So it'd
put
be the
money in.
second year. Yep. Next is Fund 50, our food service account. The estimated food service revenue for 2021-22 is just over $3.4 million. Estimated expenditures at $3.1 million. This fund balance for June 30th of 2022 is projected to increase from $898,000 to $1.2 million. The increased revenue is associated with increased meals served under the extension of the federal free meal program. So we saw more students participating last year, and Director Mike Gasper anticipates that that will continue as long as there is free breakfast and lunch for all students through the end of this school year as well. So the anticipated revenue does exceed expenditures, growing the fund balance in Fund 50 for next June. And lastly, we have the Community Service Fund, Fund 80. The estimated revenue and expenditures for this year are $100,000. The planned use of the funds continues to be supplemental programming at the Boys and Girls Club in Holmen, including supporting the educational director and other personnel and supplies for the Sail to Success program. That program serves all resident students, not just the students that are enrolled in the School District of Holmen, which is also why it is under Fund 80, because that's a community service fund. We do have some carryover fund balance because they were not able to open last year and provide the level of programming that would have been provided if we were not closed. And that will come in very handy for cash flow because there's expenses from July through December and tax proceeds, which funds this, programming are not received in the district until January. So that actually kind of works in the favor for cash flow so that we can continue to support their programs as the levy proceeds come in toward January and February. This completes the presentation for 2021. Do you have a question?
I just have one on Fund 46. And it's probably been answered before because we've discussed this in the past. So if we contribute, in theory, $10,000 the next 5 years, when that 5-year period hits, can we take out that whole $50,000 to spend on projects, or is it just the amount that has matured to that 5 years?
You can use whatever's in the account.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And then the next item is related to the budget for the 22-23 school year. Criteria for funding determination, list of un- and underfunded, all that good stuff. Dr. Mueller.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
I'm excited to talk about budget. So,
Good.
as Julie mentioned, we have un- and underfunded needs, and we determine those each year and so on. But in doing that, we need criteria that we follow in prioritizing those un- and underfunded needs. So here, let me progress in the presentation. So why do we have criteria, criteria for funding and determining what how to rank those? It's just, this is actually a part of our budget development process, and it's a decision-making tool so that we can actually, like I had said, determine, what are our top priorities that we aren't able to fund out of our general budget in that. And if we do end up, we can go about it two different ways. One is we can build needs into a budget for the following year, or many times at the end of the year, we are able to fulfill some of the needs if we have money available at the end of the year in that. So this is kind of determining, what are we going to put our dollars towards. So like I mentioned, it's part of our, this is our budget development calendar that the board has approved, and it is approved each year. And so tonight, I'm bringing forward our recommendation for how we would determine and rank our un- and underfunded needs for the 22-23 budget. So always looking forward. So tonight, as I mentioned, this is for your review and input. So in determining these un- and underfunded needs and prioritization, first, we definitely use our strategic plan in a more general sense around our vision and our mission, and then also our focus areas. Now, we always want to be careful that when we're making decisions that it doesn't counter affect another area in the district. Within our dashboard, in past years then, we have also went down deeper, sorry, get that out right, as to looking at our actual descriptions within our focus area, and then looking at how it would impact our different measures within that. So one thing that I would bring forward is that we would continue to use our dashboard, but I wanted to share that we have updated our descriptions just recently to better fit our new vision and mission that had been approved recently, or most recently, to build in some verbiage around the new mission, which involves more inclusivity and also our core values, which is also a part of equity and so forth. So the recommendation would be to use these new descriptions along with our current dashboard measures in helping us rank and prioritize our un- and underfunded needs for the 22-23 budget. So with that, any input or questions?
Any questions? And again, this is going to be on the consent agenda on the 13th.
Yes, correct. Thank you.
The process.
Yes,
Yes.
just for using this to determine.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So then, moving on to consent agenda, we have 4 items this evening on the consent agenda. Unless there are any that need to be pulled, separated out and considered independently, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as published.
So moved.
Chris, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda as published. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Then we will move on to board member reports and discussions. I will call on you in order of roll call or whatever the list is I have here in front of me. So Emily, Zach, you are up first.
Most of you all pretty much know that I'm in favor of most of the people who spoke tonight. And actually, the FDA approved the COVID vaccine for ages 16 and up, which should be a good thing for more people to feel comfortable with actually getting the vaccine. So I think the numbers of percentages of people who are vaccinated will go up, surely. And it's kind of sad that we're putting the K through 6th graders, who probably are the ones who touch their face the most, in masks. It just doesn't seem like a great idea to me, and it's actually really sad that they have to do that. And I know in public, like, you know, I see you guys around, you know, you guys aren't wearing masks in public. You weren't 2 weeks ago. You probably weren't yesterday evening, going to the grocery store, going to restaurants. You're not wearing masks. I see you. You go home to your kids who are K through 6th graders. Like, I don't know, you call me selfish, you know, but you do the same thing. And if we do end up masking for 7th through 12th graders, there's a hard truth to how serious these students are going to take it. The minute they walk into the locker room and there's no teachers around, they're going to take it off. The minute the teacher walks away from the lunch table after scolding some kids to put it on, they take them back off. Wear it under your noses through the hallway. It just doesn't work. And we don't know that it doesn't work because we've never tried going into a school year not wearing masks. We've never even tried. You know, when we talk about drunk driving, girl talked about that. Well, you're more likely to be killed by a drunk driver walking out of here than you are going to from COVID. And if you mandate this mask for high school students, I can assure you that people are going to leave. And my dad's told me, hey, you can leave. And unfortunately, I'm not going to leave because I enjoy being a D1 all-state player. So yeah, I'm not going to leave, but I can probably say that a lot of people are, and we've had some people come up today saying their kids are leaving. And it's hard to do, and it's hard to see. And I'd like to thank the police officer here tonight, and I'm still the proud daughter of the selfish, self-righteous guy who spoke earlier. So yeah, that's all I got to say today.
Can I ask you a question, Emily?
Yeah.
If students were given a choice, in-person school, have to wear masks, or virtual, if those were the choices they were given, what do you think they would take?
Obviously going in person, but
Okay.
there are,
That's all.
Can I just say one more thing?
Well, no, I just you can.
Well, there are other options too.
Well, that's like my granddaughter when I say you have a choice of Sprite or fruit juice, and she says, I want Mountain Dew. Maybe the choices are only those two things.
There is a choice. We're going back to school without masks.
Maybe
That's-
there isn't. Maybe there isn't. And so I'm just saying, if given a choice, I think you summed it up, because Dr. Mueller made it very clear that our primary goal is to keep our students in school.
I understand that,
And
but
if
we also have parents who show up
Emily,
here
Emily, I'm speaking now. So if the choice is to provide that safety for those students, and the leadership team feels the best way to do it is to provide a mask,
But
or
they
to ask them
don't.
to wear a mask, then those are the choices that they have.
I understand that,
And
but we
so-
also have parents who show up and they say, oh, I really want my kid to go back
I don't
in
want to
school.
get into a big debate about this.
Well, it's
because
not a
there's-
debate, it's just a conversation between me and you right now.
Can we keep this just to our comments, please?
Yes.
Both of you.
So I
Thank you
just
very
asked the
much.
question,
Okay.
and I appreciate that. So moving on to Jennifer Deek.
Yeah, I just want to give the, all the new teachers that have started here in the School District of Holmen a warm welcome. I hope orientation week went well, and I think a lot of teachers are excited to come back this next week. And I know I'm excited for the school year, and my kids are excited for the school year, so we're looking forward to September 1st. Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer. Gary Dunlap?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody who spoke tonight. It's always good to get good information and hear from those guys. I was a little upset with the wearing of masks at the meeting tonight. I didn't exactly agree to that. I thought it was short notice, and I thought it was a right or wrong. I thought it was a little vindictive because we haven't been wearing masks for 2 months. So I was not in favor of that. I did do a lot of soul searching and a lot of statistical reading, trying to figure out exactly where we were with the mask. I found some great articles, of course, like everybody else out here. I did find some good articles by the CDC and by the University of Wisconsin-Madison Medical School, pediatrics. They had a few myths to knock down, and one was that kids don't get seriously sick from COVID-19. The fact is that adolescents and children can be infected with COVID and spread the virus to others. COVID pandemic suggested the incidence rate among children and adolescents was lower among adults. However, the lower incident rate may have been due in part to children when compared to adults having fewer opportunities for exposure. And children can transmit the virus to others. That's the big one. Is you say that only, and I say only, but only 300 kids were killed or died in the United States. They don't get real sick, and they take the virus home to their families. And as of July 2021, more than 40,000 children in the United States have lost a parent to COVID, and it's estimated that there are 120,000 children lost their primary caregiver. And I just read an article again, and if you want to have statistics, if you want to have some papers to back this information up, I too have around 18 references from major universities and reliable sources that I can share, email you. There's a report out now that's estimated that if the Delta variant keeps going the way it is, that the children are not masked or are not vaccinated, that 60% of the children in the United States could come down with COVID in the next 3 months. Masks don't work. Studies have shown that the universal masking has been an incredibly effective tool for controlling the spread of COVID in schools. Universal masking can allow students to largely operate normally. Distancing can be reduced in the classroom or on the bus. If children are exposed to COVID in a fully masked environment, they do not need to quarantine. Most children can mask successfully. Few children with specific needs may need special accommodations. Masks can be dangerous to kids. Masks restrict airflow, CO2 levels, etc. Masks are designed to reduce respiratory droplets that may contain COVID-19, either from the wearer or to protect the wearer from others, but allow oxygen to flow in around the mask. CO2 molecules are so small they flow through the mask like oxygen and are not restricted. Proper masks are safe for kids. Children under the age of 2 and children with special needs should not be required to wear masks. Vaccines for teens or rushed are not safe. Vaccines are extremely effective and have been extensively tested to show that they are safe. As of July 2021, more than 4 billion people have received at least one dose of COVID vaccine, and more than 1 billion people are fully vaccinated worldwide. Serious side effects are extremely low. All vaccines that are approved for children and teens go through the same testing and review as those for adults. The FDA continuously is monitoring for unusual side effects even after vaccines are authorized. The United States has not had a confirmed death from vaccination. In saying that, there's been this disturbing thing in the news lately, and one was the people in Mississippi taking horse medicine rather than take the vaccination. That was disturbing, of course. Do I like wearing a mask? No, I don't like wearing a mask either. but I don't lose my mind when I'm inconvenienced by wearing a mask. It's something that Americans should be doing. Imagine where we'd be if we had all wore our masks religiously and we all got vaccinated when it was available, and we were outside of school and outside of other places, if we had remained wearing our masks and stayed socially distanced rather than going to parties and conjoined together. Just think where we'd be today. It's our own fault we're at. And it's a little upsetting when as a school board, we're trying to mitigate these issues and try to do the best thing we can for these students. We want to do the best things for these students. We don't, and the community, we don't want to do anything that would harm those kids. And it's hard to decide which way to jump. If America had come together and not believe some of the lies and misinformation they came upon, this whole thing could have been cured, and we would have been down the road a long ways. If it was up to me, I'd have it mandatory vaccinations in the high schools. It's available, it's good, it's FDA approved, and there's no reason why we shouldn't vaccine everyone that's able to get vaccinated. Most of the people in this room have all been vaccinated a dozen times from when they were young. We had to get vaccinated for chickenpox and polio and flu and measles and all that stuff before we could go to school. I don't object to that, doing it now. If you want to get your kids to enjoy high school as a senior and enjoy sports, I would recommend you take them out and get them vaccinated and vaccinate your family and protect yourself and make it happen. Standing on the sidelines and complaining about wearing masks when they need to be worn and not getting vaccines because you don't want to, or some macho thing, is just not acceptable. And I would listen to reliable sources, and I would do your research. I would do your research diligently and find some reliable resources and read them and find more than one resource and find out what part of the truth works for you. Because, as I've said 100 times in this boardroom, the truth is the truth. Just because you don't want it to be the truth doesn't make it not the truth. Trust the reliable sources. They're out there. Don't trust the unreliable sources, because we'll mention names of those. But it's just a shame to me that we could be so far down the road, and here we are quibbling about wearing a piece of paper on your face for maybe a semester to get things taken care of. When this Delta, we don't know what's going to happen with this Delta down the road. It could be monstrous down the road. It's raging across the country. And as far as metrics, and if a month of school has gone by and the Delta is calming down and people are getting vaccinated because it's approved, we have to have a metric to say, okay, let's calm down and back down off that and get the kids back to normal. That's what we all want, to get them back to normal. But it's very frustrating with all the different information. And I understand what people want. The national survey just came out today. It's 73% of adult voting people in this country want masks mandated to kids under 12 years old. And it's not what the people are telling us. We hear it all the time. You listen to what the people are telling us. But we get just as many or more positive emails and letters from people who want to have want us to mandate masks for kids under 12 years old. It's difficult. We're right on the middle of the line, and we're trying to make the best decision for these kids, and I hope people understand that are out there listening.
Thank you, Gary. Anita Jagosinski.
Thank you. So first of all, like I do at every meeting, I was going to thank the people who spoke tonight, because I know it's not easy. And then I didn't plan to do this, but I'd just like to correct some misinformation that has been going around. After the last meeting, and again tonight, I was accused of not caring about freedom. I was raised by 2 Navy veterans, so freedom was a big deal in my house. And I didn't say I didn't care about freedom. What I said is that personal freedom doesn't have to mean that you don't care about your fellow man. I was also raised by 2 parents who had very little worldly goods, but did everything they could with what they had to help other people. That included sacrificing, like we're being asked to sacrifice now. There's personal freedom and there's personal responsibility that goes along with that. I wish that we could have more of the we instead of the I. I was also accused of not listening to parents. This is false. I've been on the board for about 24 years. I've listened to literally thousands of parents in the grocery store, phone calls, emails, in person, you name it. I've been in meetings with administration with parents. It's part of my job to listen to parents, and I take it really seriously. Ask my husband. He tells me I'm too serious about most things, and I do. I'm a rule follower. But listening to parents doesn't necessarily mean that we only listen to one set of parents. There are 100 different opinions on any one topic, and it's impossible to do what every parent would like us to do. We as a board set the policies and procedures to guide the district. Our community does have a voice. They can tell us their thoughts, share their opinions with us, and they have a voice every April when they elect board members. Hopefully, the community elects board members who most closely align with their own values. I also thanked people after the last meeting for speaking, and I said that I appreciate them. And I did say our decisions are not based on how many emails, phone calls, or parents show up and speak. And we shouldn't base our decisions on that. It would be like taking a vote on every item that we have to make a decision on at every board meeting. That's why you have an elected board, to be your voice. We try to represent everyone, but again, not everyone is going to agree with all the decisions we make. Every parent has different hopes and dreams for their kids. We do our best to make sure those are fulfilled. We take thoughts that parents have into consideration, but we don't use that as the sole reason to mask or not mask. We have to look out for the well-being of our staff and the community, and especially the kids. And to do that, we have to look to experts, no matter how impassioned parents feel about a certain topic, pro or con. Tonight it was stated also that I didn't want people to come to the meeting and voice their opinion. This is absolutely not true. I welcome community members to speak at our meetings. What I didn't welcome over the weekend was for someone to share a meme of a person with a machine gun, along with their suggestion that they come to the meetings and share their thoughts. We've seen all over the country that at board meetings, emotions can quickly escalate, and no one should have to feel in danger as a result of serving on a board of any kind. We should not have to ask for police presence in order to feel safe. I absolutely care about our freedom, and that's why I think we should wear masks, and I wish that masks were mandated for all the grades, but that's another story. I want our students to be free. I want our students to be free to be in school all year and not have to do virtual school again. They actually get to start the school year in person, and I want to keep it that way. I want them to be free to see their classmates in person every day. I want them to be free to experience school dances and graduations in person. I want them to be free to experience co-curriculars and activities. I don't want them to have to go virtual as a result of this virus spreading, and that's why it's imperative that we mask up and get a vaccine. At the end of the day, we should be doing everything we possibly can to keep our kids in school and get back to some sense of normal. If masks are the path to that, it is a small price to pay. If the result of us trying to keep our staff and students and ultimately the community safe means that some parents are unhappy with me, I'm sorry that they feel that way, but I'm willing to accept it. What I am not willing to accept is someone dying because of a decision that I made as a board member. We can all help end the pandemic. We can all help keep kids in school with their friends and face to face. We can help keep our students and staff safe. Get vaccinated and wear a mask. That's all I have.
Thank you. Chris Lau?
I just wanted to say welcome back to the students and teachers, and welcome for those new students. I know, or teachers, I know we are very excited for a Wednesday night open house at Viking and Arcos. So I have just a small prepared statement. I do support the decision for making masking mandatory for all K through 6 learners. I feel it's the safest option for our students to remain in person. I want to thank the many parents in the district that emailed and sent letters of support for students and staff being masked but did not come to speak this evening. I want to thank our medical professionals and scientific community for continuing to provide sound guidance, best practices, and recommendations to keep our students, staff, parents, and community members safe. I understand that some parents and students may not agree with this decision. However, it is our responsibility to keep all of our learners safe until everyone has access to the vaccine. I feel there is no acceptable level of serious illness for anyone in the district. We as a district should do what we can to help reduce the spread. Masking is part of that. And I feel this is a step in the right direction. That's all.
Thank you, Chris. Rebecca Reber?
Again, thank you, everybody, for all the emails and everybody that spoke tonight. I do have to say, I felt quite ridiculed. I felt a little bit bullied. I didn't really appreciate being called crazy or fascist. I took offense to it, and it makes me very sad. I don't know. This is just the beginning. Our kids are going back to school, but this is just the beginning. We are going back to school right now in person, and this could change tomorrow. 2 weeks ago, we weren't wearing masks, but I'm wearing a mask now because it's the rules. I'm going to get in my car. I'm going to follow the speed limit. It's the rule. I'm going to put my seatbelt on because it's a rule and it keeps me safe. I'm going to get up in the morning and go to work and put my mask on and follow rules that are established by the DHS, by CMS, for my people that I work with. I'm going to follow the rules because it's safe. I took big offense tonight. I felt attacked, and I'm very upset. But I also know that we have support on the other side as well. If we need to get through this next year with masks on, so be it. My opinion, it's what's right, and it's what's safe for our residents. It's safe for the community. It's safe for the students. So that's all I have. Sorry.
Thank you. Brian Wopat?
I'd like to start by sharing my appreciation with administration and even teachers who put in extra time to make sure that registration went very smoothly, especially even for those in the elementary level with open houses that are coming up. I can say Mr. Vogler did an incredible job. My daughter is really excited to be a sixth grader this year and being at the middle school. And my son is looking forward to going back to school, and he is a handful. We all know that. And so thank you for the time that you put in to making open house so welcoming for the students and the parents, and making registration just go so smoothly. It was great this weekend during Corn Fest to see the bands, both middle school and high school, the cheerleaders. I know that the wrestling team was walking in the parade, and it was great to just see them together. Again, I just feel like it's little steps forward that we're taking to get back to normalcy, because we all want to be here. We all want to be together. And so it was just good to see those groups marching in the parade. Tomorrow is a big day in the district, as it's day one for staff coming back, and I want to wish them the best of luck, and that you have my full support for this year. I hope I was with my wife today over at Evergreen just for a little bit, and their teachers already busy putting their classrooms together, and it's just hustle and bustle. They're, I think, equally excited to see the students as the students are to see the teachers. And so I wish everyone a great and wonderful and impactful 21-22 school year.
Thank you, Brian. And first, I just want to say, Emily, I apologize. I didn't mean to get short with you. I just wanted the answer to that question, because it's one of those questions I suspected I knew the answer to before I asked it. But I think it's important to know that that is the goal of what is happening, is to be in person. I want to thank Dr. Mueller and her leadership team. I know that these are not easy times, and we are asking our district administration to make decisions about health care issues, and that's not what their training is in. And so I am so appreciative of all the extra time and efforts that they have put into meeting with the healthcare professionals, our medical directors, people on the COVID-19 or whatever they're going to call it now, collaborative with La Crosse County. In addition to getting ready to kick off the school year, and I think they heard loud and clear last year and this spring that having students in person was the priority. And how can we do that? And in what way can we do that? And I know that there's been some discussion. In fact, I think I had more emails from people who said we didn't go far enough, that they wanted us to be more mandatory mask, all students. We heard from a good number of them that said we should be fully masked, and it's all students. And the leadership team has taken this position based on data that they have and based on the plan that they had put in place last year. So looking at the local data, the local outbreaks, the local numbers that we have, and data is showing, for example, in the middle and the high school, teaching staff, asking them to be in masks is because data shows that that age group of many of our educators is increasing in cases, but the student population is very stable or actually decreasing. But if we see a change in that or local outbreak here in the district, then I think masking will be the next. I had an opportunity to meet the new teachers last week. And oh my gosh, there are 30 of them sitting out here, very eager, like the first day of school for many students. You could tell when they introduced themselves, they had a great deal of pride in what they had done. Some of them right out of college, some of them with many years of experience, and I congratulated them on getting through because Holmen is known for having a very robust and difficult screening and process that we put in place. We do have checks and balances, and we do those background checks. And we have quality recruiting, search, those kind of procedures in place. And I am very comfortable with the hiring decisions that the administration has made and the district has made. It was just fun, though, to hear them and to see them as a class because they come in kind of together as a group and that sort of thing. The other, also, thank you to Officer Kind for being here. It makes me sad that we needed to have law enforcement here, or we felt, and it wasn't just one board member that felt threatened by the meme. It was meant a couple of us. I felt threatened by it. I've seen in the community other kind of postings that have also caused concern. And so I think it was right for Dr. Mueller to reach out and to make sure that we had some representation here tonight. We also knew, and Gary, I know that you felt like it was last minute that we did the masking thing here tonight, but we knew we had the resources to offer everyone a mask. That came, and it is, as someone said, just a piece of cloth. So for them to be here, I'm saddened by some of the behavior here tonight. Rebecca, I'm sorry that you feel the way you did and that you have to feel that way. It's not right. I find it ironic that just 2 weeks ago, people came and complimented the district on decisions that were made and the way that they went about making those decisions. And now that the decisions are not necessarily of their liking, you saw what we received here tonight. And if you only believe in democracy when it works in your favor, but not when it works in a different position, then you don't really believe in democracy. And while many people are not happy with the decision that was made, many people are very happy with the decision that was made by the leadership team, and I would say even more, as I said, ask us to go even further. So I just would ask that people try to look out for the big picture as to why these decisions are being made and celebrate the fact that we're going back in person, because last year at this time, a year ago, we were not, and I think we have to look at what those celebrations we can have. As Dr. Mueller shared with me the experience this Saturday before she was with the band, and she was very heartened in a positive way by the parents who came into the building that were quickly putting on masks, and even students putting on masks when they didn't have to, because they recognize that stopping the spread, keeping those outbreaks down is going to be in their best interests, and we won't have to quarantine and suspend activities and those kind of things, because that is not the direction we want to go in. So that I just, again, ask people to look at the big picture. So Gary?
I just have one little thing to add. I worked at the hospital last week and was doing some IT work and crunching the numbers, and we did not have a single open room at Lutheran Hospital all week last week. Every room was full. We kept moving people to Mayo Clinic, and we averaged 7,200 visitors to the clinic every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, we are in the red. The county is in the red, and I think we need to recognize that. And last year at this time, if we were in the red, we were going to be virtual. So just remember that. And I know Dr. Mueller and her team, they have the matrix, and they have looked at what it might take for us to get rid of the mask, but they also are looking at what it might take, to mask at all levels and those sorts of things. So again, I appreciate your leadership and your willingness to make those hard decisions. So I guess I just would move on. Note that tomorrow, if you are able to spend an hour or two with the district, please let Stacy know tonight before you leave. At 8 a.m. is the back-to-school kickoff in the auditorium, the beautiful new auditorium at 8 a.m. We have a board meeting on the 13th and the 27th. And then I just would note, we also have other meetings in October, but the 25th of October is our mega meeting night. We start at 6 o'clock with the budget hearing, then the annual meeting, and then the regular board meeting that we need to have at the end of the night. I would note that committees, Stacy, I didn't lose your email, but committees were working on that, and I hope by the end of this week to have committee assignments completed. I don't see any real major changes. I know that one or two people had asked maybe to be placed on a different committee. And other than that, there are no board policies that come up at this point in time, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.